Greetings, citizens, and welcome to another edition of Reverse the Verse Live, the only show that's procedurally generated, with sliders for facial hair, acerbic behavior, and a number of references to obscure movies from the 1980s. I'm your host, content manager Jared Huckabee. Now, on the show this week, we'd originally planned to have members of our CIG audio team live from the UK, but unfortunately they're unable to join us today. That said, we've got something just as good. We've got Curtis and Cory Bamford here to talk all things props in Star Citizen. They were on the show last year and it was a lot of fun. I'm happy to have them back. Plus, we can finally put to bed whether or not this procedural cuisine is really a thing or not. So that's coming up later in the show. But up first, the week in review. Now, last week we had Josh Herman, Gage Hallman, and Mr. Potato Man on the show to discuss all things bringing characters in Star Citizen to life. Now, I have no idea what was in the water that morning, but it was a really fun show and a great chance to hang out with some of my favorite people here in the Los Angeles studio. And Jeremiah. If you haven't checked it out, it's available now up on YouTube. Saturday, we pushed Star Citizen Alpha 3.1 to our live testing environment. Now, 3.1 brought with it a number of new features and ships, including the character customizer, the service beacon system, and the massive reclaimer. The push to our live testing environment has already yielded much in the way of feedback and internal metrics that will inform not only our next 3.1 iterative patch, but work on the upcoming Alpha 3.2 patch as well. Now, I know that smaller testing environments like Evocati and PTU get a lot of the spotlight, but we shouldn't overlook the massive returns provided by all of you Star Citizens out there playing our live alpha testing environment. It's sometimes easy to forget that all Star Citizen gameplay environments are testing environments while we're in alpha, and the work that each and every one of you do banging on the pipes as you do in live is crucial to influencing and informing our overall development. So good one on you, everyone. Keep it up. And keep those videos of the reclaimer landing on everything coming. It looks so cool. On Sunday, absolutely nothing happened. We certainly didn't spend 10 hours babysitting a live stream on procedural food and forgetting to leave for Easter dinner at Mom's house in time to get any cornbread. Nope, nothing to report here. You can go about your business. Move along, move along. Monday brought with it an all-new episode of Calling All Devs, this time focused on your backer-submitted, backer-voted questions regarding blind quantum jumping, ship cockpit customization, radar and scanning and the death of golf swings, and the future of ship-to-ship and ship-to-station docking. Now, each week we take your questions and track down answers directly from the developers themselves. You should watch it because it's good and it makes me feel good when you do. Tuesday was Lore Day and brought with it another all-new episode of Lore Maker's Guide to the Galaxy. This week, newly promoted writer Adam Weiser takes us through the Null system with its city built from the wreckage of a Bengal carrier. Now, of the systems I'm most looking forward to seeing in the Star Citizen universe, this is one of them. I had a better joke there. I forgot it, and I didn't put it in the thing, so it's not on the screen. We're just, all right. Thursday brought with it the latest episode of Around the Verse, this time featuring a look at the continuing work on refining and improving the Moby-Glass app, as well as another UK studio report, which featured great looks at the upcoming truck stops, work on the Hammerhead, and more. If you want to see even more of the Hammerhead, tune into next week's ship-shape-focused Around the Verse. Also on Thursday, which was yesterday, we pushed out a Star Citizen Alpha 3.1.1 patch with hopes to fix a number of issues, including ship insurance expediting fees that were just too dang high. Now, unfortunately, due to new issues that were created in the process that caused additional client crashes, we had to roll back the patch. But our folks here are still working on it, and we hope to have a revised 3.1.1 out to you as soon as we can. Now, as for the ship insurance claim expedite fees, as discussed this week on Spectrum, and you should check that out if you haven't, the fees for ship claims in Alpha 3.1 weren't working the way that we wanted them to at this point in time. So they're being refactored a bit in line with today's Star Citizen Alpha experience. As with all things, we'll continue to iterate on this system and all other game systems in Star Citizen over the course of our development, with ship expedite fees increasing over time to match more and more of the persistent universe economy and gameplay experience as they come online. As Star Citizen continues to develop, so too will the risk and rewards for operating in the persistent universe, so be prepared. As usual, you can provide all your feedback for each and every patch we deliver right there up on Spectrum. So with that, we're going to take a short break now, and when we return, we'll be talking props with the props team. Props, 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 lovely props, no. JJ laughed when I did it in rehearsal, so I'm just doing it again. We'll see you in a minute, everybody.
Memphis, man. Memphis, man.
And that was Thrustmaster, once again in with the Wub Wub. His Reclaimer cinematic, you can see it on Star Cinema, which is his YouTube channel. What can I say? A fun fact about that, though, we'll get to you guys in a second here. Fun fact about that, though, I found that video when Chris Roberts sent it out in Skype. So, good job, Frostmaster. All right, joining us on the show this week, we got these guys, Cory Bamford and Ben Curtis from the UK props team. A round of applause.
Yeah.
Thank you, JJ.
Yes.
JJ makes every show fun. Welcome, guys. How you doing?
Hey.
Yeah,
great.
good. Good,
Pretty
thank you.
Good, thanks.
Welcome back. It's been a while. We were talking before the show started, and I think it's been like a year and a half since we've had you on.
Yeah.
Yeah, time flies.
Yeah, it's possible our timeline's wrong. The days blur. The days just blur. I find that I mark time based on our events. Like it's like it was after. Was that around Gamescom, or was that around PAX, or was that around CitizenCon and stuff like that? That's the only way I can mark time is the big events that happen every year. So welcome back to the show, guys. You were asking me in my ear during the video. Yes, cornbread is an American thing. It's cornbread is in everything. I love my cornbread, and I didn't get any this Easter. Okay, on to the show. We're not done wasting time. You guys on the props team. Now,
Yes.
because every show is somebody's first show, why don't we take a few moments and tell everybody who you are and what you do for Star Citizen?
Okay, so I'll go first. My name's Ben Curtis. I'm the art director for the props team over here at Foundry 42 in the UK. So it's my job to kind of look after and make sure the props team run well. It's kind of steer them with their kind of visuals, work with the other teams to make sure everyone's kind of working together and we're delivering what everyone needs, and just make sure everything kind of works and sits within our universe, really.
Okay.
I'm Cory Bamford, prop artist. I make boxes mostly, but also make various tidbits for the verse. Anything from...
I noticed.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Sorry, go on. I was going to say I think Cory's being a little bit. Yeah, he does a lot more than that.
He's
I do way more.
He's very
than that.
modest.
Boxes are a very small part of our scope. We also do lots of other bits and bobs for the game.
Yeah, we're affectionately known as Team Box.
That's what I was going to say. You're affectionately known within the studio structure as Team Box.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what props are in general. Just because we're going to take questions live from the chat, let's help folks know what kind of things they should be asking about. What is a prop in Star Citizen?
Well, I mean, so props are kind of fairly all-encompassing, really, in that we kind of serve the environment team, the design team, the ship art team, and we're a content creation team. So we make assets that you see in the universe. It's kind of quite a kind of a grey line between what we do and don't tackle. It can be one day you can be making boxes and coffee cups and tables and chairs, and then the next day you can be making cranes and machinery and forklifts and power generators, and it's kind of a very varied kind of art team here. We generally kind of sum it up as if you can't fly it, it's not a character, and it's not a kind of a ceiling, a wall, or a floor, then generally,
If it's not bolted down, basically,
then
it's probably
we've
ours.
had something to do with it. Apart from doors are an environment team.
Now,
Don't want to touch them.
Now, yesterday on ATB, we had our UK studio update, which featured a bit of work that Team Box has been working on. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what we saw in yesterday's ATB and see if you can expand on it a little more. One of the things they made was, one of the things that Ricky mentioned was improvements to the prop team's entity system within DataForge, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
What are we talking about there?
Well, it's a pretty big deal for us because it basically means that it's very easy for us now to get things like material effects, lighting, and so on dynamic on our props. So, say for instance, we can create a lamp entity, and when you shoot that lamp entity, it will spawn a particle effect. The light will go out. It will roll across the floor, and it basically means we can get all of that done inside DataForge, which a lot of people have probably heard of. It's an in-house tool we have for creating these entities. Basically just allows us to make those quite quickly and quite easily.
Gotcha. And
Yeah.
I would imagine it makes syncing with animations easier.
Yeah, so I think like to expand on what Cory was saying, it's our kind of in-house tool chain to bring all the different elements of the game together. So we the kind of like the ultimate goal is from at least from kind of my point of view, or the props team's point of view, is that when we make an asset, we know that it can kind of dropped into the world by anyone that wants to use that asset, and it will have the functionality built into it. So we're not having to kind of constantly repeat the same setup, or we're not having to drop in one explosive barrel in one area of the game and then someone else uses it in their area and they're like, oh yeah, it does this much damage, and then in another area it does this much damage, and that sort of stuff. It's a way of us kind of containing all of that information just in the actual single asset. So it is a lot of working with other teams. It's a lot of kind of working with the guys that write the tool and the guys that kind of support the engine, and just bringing all that information together. And it's kind of come on. I can't remember whether or not we talked about it last time or not.
I think we were just on the cusp of item 2.0 wise kind of becoming a thing.
But we're kind of a lot more confident with the actual toolchain now. So we kind of have the ability to kind of set this stuff up. And then also one of the things that is really nice that it allows us to do is we set it up once for one asset, and then we can kind of child all the other similar assets that have the same sort of gameplay elements underneath it. It's the same system that the guys kind of use for doing a lot of the other interactive kind of terminals and airlocks and all that sort of stuff in engine. But it means that we can iterate the visuals and still have consistent kind of gameplay.
You can inherit all of the features of a certain entity, and then you can make changes to that. You can make children for that, well, because it's an inheritance system, and then you can make changes to those, like for the art. But you can still retain all that functionality as well. So if you make changes to the parent, those changes will then propagate down as well. So it allows us to iterate on as Ben said, stuff like values can be changed.
That's an important thing. It seems like, I know it may seem like a dry subject and whatever, but being able to have building these processes that allow things to be inherited and whatnot, that's the only things like that, and the procedural generation stuff. Those are the only ways we're going to get to making everything that we have to make for a game of this size. You have to build smarter, not harder, as they say. So a lot of what Star Citizen has been doing the last couple of years has been building these tools that will allow us to build the content as we go forward. And it's great finally being in content phase.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely it. Is that because we are like a content team, everyone enjoys kind of making pretty assets and making the things that they really want to show off, and then you kind of get to the bit, and if that kind of setup is really difficult and time consuming and just repetitive, then it's no fun. Whereas if you have a system where that you can kind of get it working once, and it might be a case that we'll make an asset, we get a template set up and we send it over to design, they can balance it from a gameplay point of view, the lighting guys can light it and get their kind of default lighting set up and all that sort of stuff, and then we can come back and we can just take that and, like say, we're making a universe. It's massive. If you want to make that amount of content, you need smart tools and clever ways of working.
It's also really exciting just being able to shoot a prop and seeing particle effects and hearing sounds, and it all kind of working now. Like seeing that coming together is really nice. I think in the latest ATV that was something we showed off. Yeah.
The next thing that we were talking about were interactive props and why we had to make changes to the metrics for them. Now, let's talk a little bit about, and guys, before we go into this, we are taking questions from the live chat, so submit your questions, preface it with the word question in capital letters and brackets. You can do it either in Twitch chat or in Spectrum chat. We are collecting them now, and we'll get to your questions in a second. We talked about changing the metric, having to update the metrics for the interactive usable props. Obviously, we've been in development for some time now. Why are metrics changing now? Why do metrics continuously change throughout development?
Yeah. I think like metrics is it's a really kind of hot topic. It's at least from the kind of the internal side of things, for the fact that they touch so many different elements of the game. We have like you say, we've been in development a while. We've got a whole plethora of kind of assets, and we also have a lot of performance capture and animation stuff that we need to kind of retain as much of that kind of onset kind of acting as we can and get that into game. And obviously because our props they can be used across lots of different environments, lots of different areas of the game, it's really important that everything kind of works together. It's not we're not kind of going back and going, oh, okay, this metric isn't quite right anymore, and this, that, and the other. But what we are doing is we're going through and kind of, because we're in a position where we have this new functionality and we can feel confident that making metric templates and actually getting kind of as before, we just had kind of screenshots on a wiki page that kind of laid all this stuff out, and it wasn't particularly user friendly. It wasn't always kind of like the clearest as to what the kind of images were actually trying to tell you. So we're kind of making an effort now to actually take that information, create proper in-engine templates that we can use that have all the functionality that we want to have, all the kind of performance capture plugged in, and kind of having that all tied up into kind of one thing that is in-engine. It's in our kind of 3D Max, our kind of content creation tool, and it's also kind of documented. So it means that if another department that might not normally make beds, they need to come in and make beds, we can go, oh yeah, here you go, just drop this into your scene, and all they need to worry about is kind of iterating on the art, and they know that all the kind of like the technical side of things, all the helpers, all the naming conventions, all the dimensions is all just going to work. And it's one of those things that you do write once and you're done, and it works. Whereas and we're just kind of, again, it goes down to kind of scalability, and we want to be able to kind of get through the content quicker and not have to worry about the more technical side of things. Now we kind of are in a position to do that.
Scalability, that's the buzzword, man. That's the only way we're going to get this done. Moving on from the interactive props. After that, we talked about destructible items, things that we things that can be destructed in the game.
Don't worry, we'll do it live.
Good.
It's early here, folks.
It's late. It's fine.
Let's talk about destructible props. Now, we're not making, what was that game? Red Faction. We're not making Red Faction where you can just blow through everything that you see. Some things are destructible, some things aren't. Let's talk about the process of how you decide what is destructible, what will be destructible, and what won't be. English, my first language, if you can believe it.
I mean, so a lot of what we've done so far has been kind of gameplay stuff, and that will always play an element. So we'll get the design team coming to us, and they'll be, okay, we want to have this new game mode, and part of it is you've got to go and find this thing and destroy it, and it's the first person to destroy it, or that sort of kind of like gameplay element. Or it might be that we want these particular cover assets to be able to take cover behind them, but then as you're taking cover and taking fire, they start to come apart and that sort of stuff. We are making a high fidelity game, I guess is the right way of saying it, in that most things.
No,
say again, sorry?
Keep going.
Sorry, no,
Nope.
Don't derail me.
Nope.
You've been derailed.
I've been derailed.
I'm sorry.
So we generally our assets kind of fall into a few different categories. We have like our kind of set piece props that would be tables, chairs, lockers, the stuff that is the kind of like the larger stuff that you wouldn't necessarily expect to be physicalized. You wouldn't expect to, if you bump into it, it's bigger than you, so you're not going to really affect it that much. So that stuff tends to be kind of static. We then have our kind of destructible kind of gameplay ones, which are things that hurt if you shoot them, things that like
environmental has
yeah,
so like gas canisters and the likes.
And then we have our kind of more of our dressing assets, which are the kind of like generally the stuff that you would be able to pick up. So it's still fairly early days with kind of being able to say, oh yeah, every single thing that you can pick up with one hand you can shoot and be destroyed, because we don't have the data on how much that's going to impact our performance and all that side of things. But that's the kind of like the goal really. The goal is that if it looks like you can shoot it, you should be able to shoot it. If that's where we want to be.
Anything that's not bolted down really should be physicalized, for the most part.
Apart
anyway.
from the big Benny's machine, because that seems to be physicalized anyway.
That's been physicalized since day one, right?
It is. The Big Benny's machine was accidentally physicalized in the early builds. It was not intended. There was one machine. There were several Big Benny machines in the level, but only one was physicalized, and that began the Big Benny's run. And it's one of those things. I mean, it's a happy mistake.
But being in 0G, obviously, has an impact.
Yeah.
But there's like kind of things that are bolted down kind of stay bolted down. But generally, we want to have a good variety of things that you can shoot.
Yeah, and just things like a melon. I feel like it's a bit of a crime in a game if you see something like a melon and you really want to shoot it, but you shoot it and nothing happens. You get like a wood particle effect or something. It's kind of, you want that sort of, it gives you that sort of texture in the universe when you know these things are actually made of the substances. Well, they act like they're made of the substances they appear to be made out of, right?
Yes.
And a lot of you've got like the VFX guys that they care about what happens when you shoot things. You've got the audio team, and they want to kind of have very they really want to support these systems with beautiful sounding sounds that are different depending on what it is you're shooting. And we're in the same kind of, I think that's the ethos is that you want to you want stuff to act how you expect it to. You want it to be that immersive experience.
Mm-hmm. Is there a power washer going on behind us, JJ?
Yeah, we thought someone was hoovering.
Yeah, we could hear it. We're like,
no, there's like a power washer on the other side of this wall.
Okay.
Somebody's cleaning the outside of the building. All right. Then we talked about sub-items for ship components, and we've mentioned this before, but it hasn't got a lot of attention. Obviously, you've got your ship. And then within the ship, you've got components, your coolers, your shield generators, stuff like that. But now there are
ship items.
And now there are
Ship
bits
items.
even smaller than that, the sub-items. Talk to us about those.
All right. So
we did a mental rock paper scissors then.
Yeah.
Ben lost.
So sub items. So these are the kind of the parts of the ship items that you would kind of deteriorate over time. They're the things that they can have. They can. You're going to have your different ship items, and you might be able to swap different grades of ship items that have different performance abilities. And then these sub items again allow you to kind of further tweak their abilities. This is kind of very design led. So
don't know much about
this comes with a caveat of we make them pretty, they make them work. But these are the things that you are going to be able to kind of swap in and out, and depending on the size and the quality of the ship item. The sub items, you might have 2, you might have 3, you might have more, and because again we do things from single seater fighters all the way up to big capital ships. These are kind of a consistent thing that will allow you to kind of tweak your ship's performance, be it your shields or your power systems, or
they behave as stat modifiers basically, I think, but in a sort of cool dynamic way.
And then that kind of gameplay of being in a ship with your friends and something blowing and one of you has to run down and mid combat rip it out, find the others, pop them in, and I think that's kind of gonna certainly be a fun. That's kind of what I'm excited for.
I think it's going to be a big part of ship combat is actually dealing with failures in your ship items and sub items and the likes.
Yeah, one of the things that's I've really been enjoying about playing Sea of Thieves lately is when you get into ship-to-ship combat, somebody has to go down below and start patching holes in the ship to start bailing water out. This will be our much more complex and driven version of that.
And you kind of the combinations of sub items, ship items, ships is huge. The ship items alone, you think every one you've got, you can swap these things in and out, and how you combine that stuff is going to be give you kind of a lot of different kind of functionality, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Finally, before we move on to your questions, and and you guys have been stellar with questions today, by the way. Good job on you, the viewer here. One final talking point from ATV before we get to the questions. Procedural food. So this captured the imagination of quite a few people when it aired. What can you? Why are we doing this? What is procedural food? People have looking at the comments. People have a lot of different ideas about what procedurally generated is. Like from No Man's Sky or something like that, they think procedural generation is the game will make food for you, at that point. And that's not what we're talking about here. Talk to us about what procedural food is for Star Citizen.
So it's you're not going to be able to fry an egg and watch the egg white kind of go from translucent to white. It's the reason we're doing that is because of the software we're using to create the food. Because that software is procedural, it allows us to get these values and expose them and change them, so we can very easily iterate and alter these assets we're creating to get rapid iteration on them and getting them to look right. So it's kind of a byproduct of the pipeline we're using to create that stuff, gives it that sort of the procedurals, the stuff that you saw. In the game itself, we're basically going to be baking all that information down into a texture.
Baking.
For the most part. Baking. Yeah. That's a good pun. I didn't actually mean to do that though.
That pun was definitely intended in the ATV.
Yeah.
Like, I know Ricky said it wasn't. It was.
Yeah. So we use Substance Designer. Go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, it's not at all. It's not. We're not putting. It's not a system in game. It's basically an art tool that we're using, and a byproduct of that is being able to have that extra control over it.
And I think, people kind of look at it and think, they question sometimes like the fidelity we're going to, and it's what Substance Designer gives us, and the fact that it is kind of no base and it is more procedural, is that rather than having to create high polys of stuff or photo source stuff that probably won't stand up to quality, or do the whole photogrammetry thing that is it has its use cases.
Yeah, we do use it in some pipelines.
Yeah, but for us, kind of making this, Substance Designer is a really kind of quick way, especially in David's hands, the guy who made it. He can kind of iterate on this stuff really, really quickly and get the kind of the quantity of assets we want really quickly. And also it means that if we do need to make changes, we're not having to, like with older traditional methods, going back to stage one again. We're just like, oh, can we just we tweak that yolk a bit, or can we adjust things, or if the writers the
curry needs to be more greasy,
or it needs to be more lamb, because lamb curry is a big deal in Star Citizen. So like having that ability to kind of make changes and get the look we're going for without having to kind of spend loads and loads of time creating the kind of source assets is really advantageous to us. And the other thing is, again, we're making a universe and we don't have real life reference of alien cuisine. So having the tools that aren't tied into real life source material is, again, really important. And that's kind of why we take that approach with Substance Designer.
It's basically, it's non-destructive. So once you've created something, you don't, that's not all you're left with. You also have all the stuff you used to create it, and you can go back and tweak those things and then just get a different result. You could hit a randomize button and get 20 different curries if you want. Well, not obviously, certain parameters of the curry could change. I'm not promising 20 curries in a game. But
we saw some comments. Some people think that using or creating procedural tools and whatnot are somehow additional work, and it's actually the exact opposite. You build the tool to reduce the amount of work that you have to do in creating all these.
And that's absolutely it. And the kind of like the substance package is really kind of gaining momentum over the last couple of years. It's almost industry standard across a lot of the kind of development studios, and it is about kind of creating things smart and taking it's not always about taking the fastest approach. If you can do stuff really fast and it might not be to quality, but if you can do stuff fast and it improves the quality, then it's a no-brainer.
It's the best tool for us, and we're not, it's not a waste of time to do it that way. It basically just means we get more reuse out of the time we invest in it.
I do want you to pass a message on to David, though. I couldn't help having had to stare at the food loop for about 10 hours on Sunday. I couldn't help but notice that they all seem to be components of English breakfast. And
so if you want to fly them over and we'll send them on a tour,
we'll make some cornbread.
I'm just saying pancakes.
Oh yeah,
pancakes, waffles, French toast.
I don't know. You need to talk to the writers. They're the ones that kind of set the menu.
I guarantee you, the writers did not set English breakfast. Don't try that with me.
Dave is literally just the chef here. Like he just receives instructions on what to make.
I mean, he was actually on a bit of a health kick at the time and going on a bit of a diet, which I didn't know until he was kind of further down the line with this stuff, and he was like, "It's killing me staring at burgers. It's just killing me."
Okay.
So
I'm gonna send David. I'm gonna send David a menu from the International House of Pancakes, so that you guys can see what breakfast is supposed to look like.
Yeah. Send us some samples.
Yeah.
Because English breakfast is a war crime. I'm sorry.
No, come on now. You can't
right.
say that.
So
Hit the end button.
Yeah.
as retribution just disappears. All right, so guys, like I said, we are taking questions from the chat. You can submit your questions either on Twitch chat or on Spectrum. Please preface your question with the word question. That'll help us bring it out. We've got some questions collected. First question right off the bat was, how do you even get started with figuring out which props to create? Do you make a master wish list? How do you organize that list that likely has thousands and thousands of props on it?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, we, like I say, I said it at the start, is we're a content team that kind of serve the other teams. So we kind of work with the designers and work with the different artists kind of in the studio, and we'll get request lists from them. So they kind of give us, this is a particular gameplay feature we want. We want something that does this, and then it kind of comes to us. We then work with the concept team. We've got like a really strong kind of concept guys here, and they'll we've kind of gone through a few different phases of how we approach doing this. What kind of works really well for us is that when environments are being concept, the concept guys also consider what functionality is in there, what gameplay is going to be in there, and what props they're going to need. So if we're doing a hangar, we'll talk about that probably later. What makes sense in this environment and what will have gameplay. And if we're, as we expand to different areas of the game, we just kind of continually add to that list. And when I first took over the props team, or created the props team, probably three years ago, I guess it was, I already inherited like a few thousand props, and trying to get that stuff kind of organized was quite a challenge.
Yeah.
We have a pretty kind of strict like naming convention and folder structure and that sort of stuff that does help. But you're right. The sheer number of assets we make is pretty huge.
I think also as well. It's specific sets of assets can go a very long way as well. So that's another thing I suppose we do is if there's assets that are very specific that aren't needed first, they'll likely go in the bottom of our backlot. We're not going to make things that are going to be used sparsely and are not necessarily needed for gameplay right now. It
is kind of quite a difficult balance sometimes, because the stuff that you need to make a level work is kind of one thing, but the stuff that you need to actually make it feel exciting, exciting to kind of run. That's why I'll probably kind of going back a bit, but like the Surface Outpost, they were kind of a really fun thing to do, because a lot of that was kind of storytelling, and that kind of extra layer of immersion and kind of history is a really nice thing to be able to do. We also kind of work quite closely with the writer teams as well, because they will look at a particular environment, and they've got the knowledge of the lore to be able to be like, this particular kind of back alleys where this character lives, and his history is this. It'd be really cool if we could have these additional props that sell his story, or this guy's really into like taking things apart and he needs this kind of real cool workshop and that, even to the point where you look at Squadron and look at like some of their bunks and the kind of the AI characters bunks, and they have it might only be one or two lines, but those one or two lines, like I say, they sell that story, and so they might have a particular medal from when they won a race around a moon or whatever it is. So we kind of get things fired at us from all different areas, and we just kind of prioritize them and get through them.
I'll tell you something about the writers though. They make all that crap up. Like I don't know where they're getting it, but they just make it up. So all right. Next question from the chat: who makes something like a forklift? Is that the props team or the vehicle team?
We tend to make a lot of the smaller vehicles that aren't primarily for players, I would suppose you'd say. Stuff like large mining vehicles, ground-based mining vehicles. That's more our kind of wheelhouse. Stuff that's not immediately to serve the players. Stuff that's more to serve the environment, I suppose.
I know why this person is asking that, why they read it. That there was a forklift in the background of some of our concept images, and people were like, oh, the forklift's confirmed, and this question was one of those 1980s sitcom things where they're asking a question, but the answer they're looking for is if they say the vehicle team makes it, maybe it'll be a playable vehicle.
Yeah, if it's a props.
I mean, I can 100% confirm we have forklifts.
Yeah.
Like, we have forklifts.
It's not a secret.
I can't confirm anything more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm on to you guys. Next question is simply bobbleheads with 3 exclamation marks and 4 question marks.
Yeah, I mean, bobbleheads.
Yeah.
Bobbleheads.
Bobbleheads, yeah. Like, it's something that I think, again, it's one of those really fun things, and it's I absolutely want to see bobbleheads. Yeah, there's a few bobbleheads that I want in my ship, and while that doesn't mean that I get to put them to the top of the backlog, it does mean that it is something that is on our radar, something we definitely we're already committed to doing, so we are doing.
Yeah. What I can add to that, guys, if you watched Calling All Devs this week, you heard Rob Reiniger talk a little bit about how we're moving towards cockpit customization in the future, ability to place items in your ship cockpit. No timeline on that at the moment, but that's where we're going. Bobbleheads were a stretch goal, so put one in the other. I'm not saying anything.
Rob definitely confirmed it. It's definitely Rob's fault.
Yeah.
But you can put them together. All right. Next question from the chat. What are the most difficult hurdles involved in the process of making props?
I suppose for me, it's you have to anticipate what sort of features you will expect to come online in the future. For instance, before we had all the destruction stuff or the entity stuff, we still have to kind of think ahead for that functionality. And it's also just figuring out kind of where, what sort of situations that prop's going to be used in, because we make these things. And it's kind of hard to say where they're going to be used or what they're going to be used for sometimes. So you kind of have to think about that on an individual basis.
Yeah, I think like we do have an element of we try to have an element of realism in our game. So if we're making a cargo loader and we get a beautiful concept from concept team and we're like, yes, ace, how's it going to work? Like we need to make sure that it might not work straight away.
We have to anticipate.
There is a point that
cool.
This is that's cool. I want to be able to drive that. Okay, cool, right. And as long as we're kind of making those decisions at the start, and we go, okay, we might not necessarily be making it working off the bat, but we're going to model it and approach it in a way that it could work, so that we know that eventually when we get to that point, we're like, okay, you know what, we've done the hard work. We're not have to go back and go, well, none of the, those proportions don't work. We can't extend and actually pick things up and that sort of stuff. We although we are making a sci-fi fantasy game, it's futuristic. It is set in the future. We've still got to kind of consider how technology will work at that time and what that functionality will be. So I think that is a little bit of time kind of spent processing that now is really important. I guess the other challenge is like you can't just take a concept and make it. It is very much does this have any performance capture attached to it? Is it going to have any performance capture attached to it, or is somebody on the design team going to see it and go, oh, I like that, I could use that for XXX and
and then, you have to also be responsive to that sort of to the sort of things people want to do with them. So you may have to take something back and then alter it to work with what they've been inspired to use it for, which can sometimes be quite interesting.
I think that having it's a nice thing that people were like, that's really cool, we want to use it for. Like that sentence alone is like you know what, we're doing a good job here. This is cool, and it's it's the same for the the community as well. When we get kind of positive feedback from that sort of stuff, and they're like, we love this and we love that. Being able to support ideas, it's nice to see our assets used, not just to make things look nice, but actually kind of to affect the gameplay and bring more exciting things to the game.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're making a game, and games are interactive by their very nature. Otherwise, they're just movies. So the more interactiveness we can get in anything, you always go for it if you can. All right, next question from the chat. I'm actually kind of curious about it. I hadn't considered it, but can you tell us what the biggest prop you've worked on is and what the smallest prop you've worked on is?
Personally or as a team? Because as a team, I think we have a comms tower that currently holds the record for the tallest prop.
Yeah, although Jake made
crane. We have a crane that was made recently that I think has then topped the tallest prop.
Yeah.
Smallest prop. I mean, we have things like pills.
Yeah, we're not making individual grains of rice here, just like putting that out there.
Yeah. But yeah, we do have very small props like a pill. It's not model, it's a texture, but we have props that are incredibly small,
like pens,
chopsticks,
noodles.
Yeah, there's some. That's the thing about our team is again, it's something that makes it quite challenging. Is the huge variety in scale and in sort of what we're making. It can be quite crazy, jumping from, say, I'm making a shipping container, and then it's like, okay, now I have to make a set of planters, or I have to make a glove, or I have to make some cloths or bedding or whatever. It's kind of you're going from lots of different skill sets and kind of working on various different things.
James did actually just start blocking out that cargo mover, which is probably going to take the crown of the biggest one soon, but it's not ready yet.
No, soon.
We also had a thread up on Spectrum where we were collecting questions for folks who can't attend live. A lot of the questions were for our audio team, and they weren't here today. But one of the questions that was from that thread I liked, is there any prop that actually has an inside joke or history to it?
There's a few things that we put in that are fun to us. So yeah, we might play homage to things. I don't know sometimes whether or not they're too subtle. Maybe. But yeah, I mean, kind of making video games is that's kind of one of the luxuries I guess you get to do, is you get to put your spin on things sometimes. Obviously, you've got to be careful. Everything needs to work in fiction, and you don't want to kind of break that immersion. But yeah, there's definitely things that we think, we're making a particular set of assets, and it'd be cool if it was this, because that plays a homage back to a particular movie or a particular game or any of that sort of stuff. I don't want to get into specifics.
You mentioned you don't want things that break the immersion of the game, and I couldn't help but feel like you were talking about a locker. Were you talking about the locker from another universe?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
No.
I think that one will go over everyone's head.
Yeah. I think that it still works in my eyes.
Okay. Yeah. That's my prop. I'm in the locker from another universe.
How are you?
Yeah. See, this was actually. I'm going to tell you something about the props of Star Citizen here.
Nice.
Back when Behavior was working for us, and they were making a lot of the hanger. They were making the hanger flare and the props. They actually created a sub flare called the Locker from Another Universe, and it's 3 lockers. And you go through, and there's things like Mark Skelton's gold shirt.
I was going to say there's a gold jacket in there, isn't there? Yeah.
But one of the things in there is a bottle prop of it's called Cloud CT Lando Fever Syrup.
Nice.
And it was in there before I got hired in, but it was cool. Dave Richard from Behavior is a friend.
There you go. That's Bobblehead done.
Yeah, there you go.
No, there will not be a Disco Lando bobblehead.
Well,
you can do a Chris Roberts bobblehead, but I bobble in. You guys have ship shape and calling all devs. I bobble enough. And this show, I sit here and I hold onto the desk to keep from bobbling. But you have plenty of disco bobble already. You don't need any more. Let's see, what else do we got from the live chat? Let's see. There's a question about the fauna. Somebody was asking if you guys work on plants. Are plants considered props?
We've
Flora?
dabbled in plants, but generally now they're kind of handled by the team in Frankfurt.
Yeah, we've got some dedicated foliage people now. Fauna-wise, that's kind of fauna's more character stuff, I think, right?
Yeah, fauna is character stuff. Yeah. Flora is. That's what they were asking. I think they said fauna.
What was the question? Sorry.
Is it fauna or flora?
Well, they said fauna, but I think they were talking about flora.
Oh, okay. We do bits and bobs, but it's mostly nowadays. It's mostly done because obviously planets
they have their
Yeah.
own kind of dedicated
Yeah,
team,
they're doing-
and that's kind of their bag.
Another question from the live chat. Who decides on the placement of props? I would imagine level designers.
Yeah, it's kind of generally, whoever builds the kind of environment, so be that the level designers or the environment team or the ship team. The ship team dress some of their assets, the environment team would dress some of their assets. The like the shops might be handled by the kind of like Rob and his kind of guys, and then it depends on what the kind of particular environment is. And then you get things like the Star Marine maps that are kind of heavily design led because they have like the real gameplay impact. So generally the props team don't do much of the dressing. We kind of make the assets and then they get handed over to the other teams to use in their creative ways.
Next question is kind of a follow-up to that. For something like small decor props that may exist in extremely large numbers, do you guys have like a polygon budget?
Yes and no. It's always because of the quality of the game we're making. A lot of these props are interactive. You can pick them up, you can look at them, or you will be able to eventually, hopefully, pick them up and interact with them. We need to make sure that they stand up to quality. One of the things that we are really conscious on is our draw calls and our kind of material usage. We obviously are very conscious about our vertex count and our poly count budget, but we're more conscious of our materials and texture usage. Our kind of layer blend materials kind of pipeline, it's slightly different to the way the ships teams and the environment team work. It shares a bit more with the way the character and the weapons team work, but it gives us the ability to get really high fidelity kind of surfacing on assets, but still maintain nice cheap draw calls, which is the kind of really important thing for us.
Yeah. So I think also as well, one thing that's kind of changed the way I think about stuff when working here is you're thinking about props. The size of a prop to me is the size of a prop in sort of screen space, right? So where it is in the screen. Like you may have this coffee mug, which when I hold it here is the same size relative to the screen as a shipping container like 200 meters away. So you have to consider that as your kind of, you're making something to fit that amount of screen space. You're not making something that size,
Gotcha.
Yeah, and it's about spending the budget wisely, I think is the best way. So if we're kind of looking at assets and they've got lots of stuff they don't need because you're never going to see it, then that's not a good asset. But if an asset's slightly more expensive but it's used in it really improves the silhouette, it makes sure that it stands up, like Cory says, when you see it up nice and close, that's where we're like, do you know what, okay, the poly count's a bit more, but by increasing the poly count we're not needing as much texture space, we're not needing as many kind of unique materials. That kind of makes sense. So it's about kind of balancing where the asset's going to be used. If we're making stuff that we know for a fact is going to never be interacted with, you're never going to get up close to it, then we'll make it as cheap as we possibly can. But most of our stuff is interactive, or these smaller scale assets is interactive. So it's about just kind of being smart with it, really.
Yeah, and we're also very keen on things like doing LODs, like good LODs that have the poly count each time. So even if you have this coffee cup, and it may be say 300 triangles or so when it's in the sort of mid-range distance, and maybe a bit more when it's up close, you're not necessarily drawing all of those polys all the time because it may just be on a desk.
Right. And for anybody that hasn't watched every single broadcast we've ever done, LODs are level of details. It's basically when you're close, it's at full resolution, full polys, full tris, and as you go farther away, it bounces back, usually between 5 stages until you get to what's just barely more than a pixel. Next question from live said, what is your favorite prop that you've created during your time on Star Citizen?
There's a lot.
I mean, for me, I don't get to do much of the creation side of things anymore. But I kind of really like the dressing stuff, the smaller little things that make people smile. I think it's the stuff that you see and you think, do you know what, that looks really cool. They've kind of gone that extra kind of. You can see we've put in the effort to make things that kind of are interesting. So the more dressing scalar stuff is what I enjoy.
Yeah, I had to think. I definitely think some of the most interesting stuff I've made is probably the ship items, just because we got such lovely concepts for those, and it was so fun figuring them out and so much fun making them. And also, we really got to push the detail with them as well, because obviously they're going to be an important part of gameplay in the future, and they're also, so we want to really make them sing. And I think it's those probably my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah.
A question from the Spectrum thread: destructible Big Benny's machines?
Yeah, I was going to mention that earlier actually when we were talking about destruction, but it's definitely something we kind of already slightly have it, but it's not really implemented.
It should be the one prop that's completely indestructible.
Yeah, I think maybe we just won't just for fun. But yeah, we are looking at remaking some of the vending machines. We're not going to change, the iconic Big Benny's logo or anything, but we have to make a few changes for drinks and food vending machines. I think currently the Big Benny's machine is a drinks vending machine, but it should be a food vending machine, or is it the other way around?
No, the other way around.
Yeah. Anyway,
Benny's is food, Pips is drink.
Yeah. We're gonna give the vending machines a bit of love in the future. So hopefully, maybe.
Right. Before we were talking about the favorite, you're talking about your favorite prop and everything. I'm surprised you didn't mention the toilet cubicle.
Yeah, actually, the toilet cubicle. I think I wrote. I sent you that. I really like making it. It doesn't open currently, but when it will, I spent a lot of time on the interior, and it was almost like making a very, 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 very small level. But I just had a lot of fun with it, and also the door mechanism. If in the outpost, if you go to the toilet, just take time to appreciate the door mechanism, because I put a lot of thought into that. And yeah,
very refined by how much space you've got, and again, functionalities kind of if it's going to open, it needs to open right. No magic doors into walls for us.
Mm-hmm.
How much time did you spend on the toilet cubicle, Cory? I know your boss is sitting right next to you.
Yeah, he is sitting
so undercut it so it's not quite as embarrassing.
Well, actually, the outside was made by someone else, so I spent maybe a week on the interior, maybe a little bit less. I can't remember. It was so long ago, but it was a lot of fun.
I don't think anyone's seen the interior yet.
No, they haven't. That's why I'm really excited for that time.
Yeah.
Another thing was, I just remembered, I really quite enjoyed making the bedding. For our bedding, I don't know if it's been mentioned on any of your other episodes, we use something called Marvelous Designer for our cloth, which is basically a cloth simulation program. They use it kind of in the fashion industry to concept dresses and the likes, but we use it to create a lot of our cloth assets. And when I was making the bedding, I made a set of bedding. I actually had to get a little character in there and set him down and then kind of tuck him in, using the cloth simulation program, so that was quite fun.
I think that's like another example of working smart. So using tools that are available to rather than having to go in and hand sculpt every single fold in the material you want, and then someone coming along going, those folds look a bit
they look a bit ropey.
Come along going, they look a bit ropey, and then having to spend loads of time iterating on it. Having a system where you can kind of simulate that stuff, and then that gives you your kind of high poly, your source asset, and then if we go, actually, do you know what, that character's not quite working right, or
it's very
doesn't
easy
quite work.
to iterate.
It's
and make what's the word for it? Like different versions. So, I could very easily and quickly make a neat and tidy tucked in blanket, and then I can make one that's kind of hastily thrown on, or like kind of hanging off the bed or whatever. And it's very quick to iterate on that. But it's just quite a lot of fun playing with like simulation programs in general.
Yeah. We see the character team here in LA uses Marvelous Designer quite a bit. It's always a blast to watch them working on it.
Yeah.
That's it, guys. You did it. You made it the
Wow.
hour.
cool. Yeah.
Cheers.
Thank you, JJ. All right, guys. So thank you so much, Ben Curtis and Cory Bamford, for being on the show this week. We're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we'll be here with the wrap up. So stay tuned.
Thank you very much for having us.
Cheers.
Come back. Well, sometimes when you push a button, the thing that's supposed to happen doesn't happen, I guess. Anyway, that's a wrap up for this week's show. I hope you enjoyed it. Special thanks again to Ben Curtis and Cory Bamford for taking the time out of their schedules to appear on the show this week. Some housekeeping before we let you go. The Alpha 3.1 Flyable Ships promotion ends next week. So this weekend will be your last chance to pick up some of these ships until their time on the big promotion clock comes back around again. What? No. The video's working again. Super. Good timing. This Monday brings with it an all-new episode of Calling All Devs, including questions from the community about swapping roles for the Cutlass seats, the engine count on the Freelancer Max, what ships we're planning to rework, explosive decompression, and having your own apartment in ArcCorp. I don't know. It's asking if he wants to play it now. I'm in the middle of my thing. Now, remember, you can submit your questions for consideration each and every week in the thread up on Spectrum, and I know you're probably tired of hearing me say that every single week.
Hi, and welcome to the first edition of Star Citizen's brand new show, which I'm dubbing Fire in the Hole. We have 10 flavors of the hot sauces. The hot wings are going to get hotter and hotter, and the questions are going to get more intense as we go.
I'm Jeremiah Lee.
I'm Elwin Batchelor Jr.
I'm Will.
Jane Hustler. It's our wonderful sriracha hot sauce. Man.
Yeah.
And I didn't know.
You could use gloves.
Let's get a cheer.
Sauce number 2.
What would be your alternate career?
It's like a nude model for our artists.
Yeah.
How's my biceps doing?
I'm the company chef. I try to do some fancy dishes.
The Bronx, 5,500 Scoville units. Can I burp on camera?
Fun fact, this thing comes from my hometown in New York.
It was just nice to like meet the people and like hear like how enthusiastic they were.
I got recognized at a Bank of America. Say, hey Jeremiah! I was like, don't look at my pin, dog. So this one comes in about 15,600 Scoville units. It's 3 times hotter than what we just ate.
Wait, that's what your call sign's gonna be? Like when we come in male nude model?
Because he's got sweet cheeks.
He does have very sweet cheeks.
They're all very straightforward. I
fast.
can't wait to dig in this one because it's so tasty.
I'm actually starting to get a little scared now.
We're at the halfway point now. So you have to make a tough choice here. Tony's explanation powers, Ortwin's debating powers, or Brian's hair.
Brian's hair. That hair will give me powers to talk like Ortwin. And I can talk about my hair as much as Tony Z would.
It is magnificent hair.
So this is when things start to make a turn a little bit.
Ew. Yeah, there it is.
You are starting to feel the ramp here, right?
What is something that you secretly love?
My secret love? Oh, that's bad. I like the barbecue sauce. I like the Ken part. And then you get the really dark, really low, like, cup of barbecue. Can we move on to the next question, please?
Like you'll take a slice of Kraft's American cheese, wrap it around the banana, and then just eat it. Yeah.
Jeremiah, stop drinking milk and talk.
100,000 Scoville, so twice as hot as the previous one. We'll see how this guy handles it.
Ooh, you can taste that habanero right on the top.
I can smell it.
Oh boy. Or am I just losing taste
It's
buds
carryover
right now?
heat.
Oh, never mind, it's back.
300,000 Scoville. It's 3 times hotter than the previous one.
But this is an
The
extract
aroma
sauce.
is
Can you
just
see
not-
it? See how red that is? It's like tastes
blood.
like xanthan gum.
It's hot and unpleasant. Question number...
Okay.
Oh, hot.
You're so pitiful, I'm not going to take it away. Look at you. I would be worried about what would happen.
I'm a hot mess.
God.
To the table.
Hot sauce number 9.
Mad Dog 357, 750,000 Scoville. That's about 2.5 times hotter than the previous one.
Who at this table would you challenge to a fight?
He's not
Sweet
wrong.
Cheeks versus hot nude model.
Oh man. Oh man.
Oh, Jared.
Do you like spicy food, Jeremiah? No! No, the good thing about this one is it's very hot, but it tastes a lot better.
I just like Jeremiah.
Man,
I throw like hot sauce at him.
so I can go to the hospital and not do this. I'm out of water now. Oh, God.
I don't know what's
I'm actually really excited for that.
Oh, my tongue hurts.
Oh.
Ask the last question, damn it.
10, final one.
The last one is the last dab. 2 million Scoville, 2.5 times hotter than the previous one.
Jeremiah, look at me. Take a deep breath. Feel the endorphins. This is all pumping through your system. This is like a marathon. Get it going, sir.
This is like America. What?
It's like America.
I'm like crying.
I lick my lips! Ah! I can't see.
Cheers, guys.
For Chris Roberts. Love you, Chris.
All right, see you guys on the way out.
Oklahoma.
It tastes really good. What is the biggest mistake you've ever made at CIG?
Oh, does this count?
With not coming in every day and telling the people I work with I love them.
There are no mistakes on the ship team. Oh my God.
Oh!
I think he's digivolving. You gotta embrace it.
I can't move.
Rotate.
What was your favorite hot sauce in conclusion?
The Bronx.
I think Dirty Dicks was,
Well, Dirty Dicks is good too.
I think this was a really great experience. Thank you for watching the first inaugural edition of Fire in the Hole. And we'll see you around the verse.
Cheers.
I can't feel it.
Hey, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
Thank you for watching. For the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42, you can subscribe to our channel, or you can check out some of our other shows. And don't forget to head to www.robertspaceindustriescom to find out more. Thank you very much for watching.